This is Orange Nation Overtime with Stephen Fonte and Paulie Sibilia.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime, everyone. Alongside Paulie Sibilia, I'm Stephen Fonte. We kicked off our show today, of course, talking Cuse basketball and the search for a new head coach. Jeff Goodman continues to be one of the leaders in terms of reporting on this situation as it pertains to Brian Hodgson. Jeff Goodman saying on his podcast, Field of 68, that he believes that Syracuse and Providence are both very interested in Brian Hodgson. That's not a surprise. The part that's newsworthy, Paulie, is that he says Providence has the edge right now, that he's leaning toward Providence, and he also has an offer on the table, a lucrative offer, apparently, according to Jeff Goodman, from South Florida to stay put for another year.
Yeah, that's a risky proposition, though, because you got to win when you're at that level.
Yeah.
If you don't, you might set yourself back.
Yeah.
That's why I think Jerry, if he's got an opportunity to move up, he's got to do it this year.
Yeah, and both guys will be in action at roughly the same time. Brian Hodgson in South Florida will take on Louisville 1:30 p.m. on Thursday. Jerry McNamara, the Siena Saints, taking the court at 2:30, right around there, against Duke down in South Carolina. We also talked at length today, Paulie, especially early in the show, about fan behavior, fan comments as it relates to players. You know, we know that this came up because of Alex Klein putting out penning that letter, and it was published by Syracuse.com, basically saying, like, listen, fans, you can say what you want, but there are repercussions to what you say, and that mental health is a thing, and the players hear everything. As much as coaches try to keep the players immune to it, they hear it, and it does affect them. And I came across a soundbite last night just on social media from Hunter Dickinson, the former Michigan player who went to Kansas. And he was talking about his year at Kansas and how things weren't going well, and it really, the fan engagement really started to affect the players on the team. And we listened back to the soundbite from Hunter Dickinson. We're going to play it for you right now, and then we reacted to it.
We didn't even feel like we had support. Like we would always make the joke. After we'd win a game, you'd go on Instagram and see how many comments we had. Yeah. It would be like 30, 40 Instagram comments saying that. And some of those we'd even be like, thank God. We won. Yeah, we won a game. Whoop-de-doo. On a loss, we would have like 500 comments of just like
going in.
Yeah. And so for me, like, it got to a point where I was like, I didn't like playing. Yeah. Like, we would come to the gym and it would feel such like a job. Like, the games got to a point where it's like, bro, I don't even want to like play right now. Mm-hmm. It just got so bad to a point where like dudes were just like, they were through with it. Some dudes were just like, get me out of here, bro. Ready to hit the portal again.
Yeah, and so the part, and he got shredded in the comments. Yes. Like, I sent it to you, and boo-hoo, you're getting paid millions of dollars. The part where he says it felt like a job. I know that the rebuttal, obviously, it is a job. You're getting paid handsomely, and so suck it up, boys, right? But these are still young men, and they're still college kids, and that stuff does still affect them. So, listen, is it within your right to throw a comment? Like, you can do whatever you want, but the problem is that and this isn't like unique to Syracuse. Obviously, this is why we bring this up. This was at Kansas. I'm sure this is going on around the country. Is that when your comments start having that negative impact on the mental health of the players, whether they get paid handsomely or not, and they start not wanting to play and not wanting to perform, and they're getting paid anyway. Now it's almost like it's counterintuitive what you're doing, right? You're coming at them,
you're piling on,
and then they don't want to play. They don't want to deal with it. You do wonder, we saw some players this year not live up to expectations. You wonder if that played into it?
JJ made me wonder. Yeah. As the more the season went on, the JJ thing made me think of that. And we said yesterday, I thought Alex Klein probably should have given it a little more time before putting this out.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was poorly timed. But it is a problem in college sports. And people can say, get off social media. It's easy for me at 53 to say, get off social media. Social media is probably the biggest part of children's and kids and young adults' life right now.
Having a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old.
You don't get it. You don't get it. That how addicted kids are to
it's
social
their
media.
lifeline to their friends, but it's their lifeline to everyone else. Now, my kids aren't high-level athletes, right? I mean, so they're not dealing with, anonymous fans and whatnot. But yes, social media is, that's in a lot of ways, that's how they stay in touch with their friends. They text their close friends, but, kids they went to college with or school with or whatever the case may be, that's how they stay involved in each other's lives.
Yeah.
And it's part of that generation.
Yeah. And when we wanted to talk to friends, we had to either call them on the phone and hope they answered or go to their house and knock on the door. Can Steve come out and play?
Yeah.
Remember having to do that? Yeah, it's a different world. And see, here's the other thing. Like, Hunter Dickinson did get $2 million. The amount of money you make doesn't make you immune to mental health issues, guys. I don't know how to explain that to you.
Right. And so that is the rebuttal. And I understand that rebuttal. You say, well, he's getting paid handsomely, put up with it. But and I think it's you can be expected to put up with some of it. Yeah. I think some of it does. If we're being honest, some of it does cross the line. And when it does get personal, and, when you got, and this is, again, not unique to Syracuse. This is going on everywhere. We played some sound bites last year. Kansas State, Indiana. This is going on around the country where it's affecting the mental health of these athletes, which, again, you can say whatever you want, but if that's the impact that you're having, you're hurting the team's ability to succeed.
Michael Antonio says, but it should be easier to deal with the criticism. How? Just because you have money in your wallet doesn't make, that's like saying if you get hit with a bat in the head, it should be easier to take the bat shot to the head because you have less money. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, I don't get that part of it. I understand that they are paid and they are paid well, but that doesn't mean you can do or say anything you want without repercussions, right? I mean, again, if you want to be an anonymous fan, it's a free country. I guess you could say what you want, but just know that your actions have consequences.
Yeah, and like people said it about Autry. Oh, he'll be okay. He got fired. He still made millions of dollars. He came to Syracuse to want to win.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to fail at their job. It doesn't make failing easier on you mentally just because you have more money.
And again, Paulie, I do get the rebuttal from fans that, well, they're getting paid a lot of money. They're getting paid millions of dollars in some cases, or maybe even most cases. And I can say whatever I want as a fan. And that's fine. Like, it's, there is free speech, but just know that if your ultimate goal is for the team to play better and the team to win, some of your comments, especially if you take them too far and get personal, it may negatively impact the player and the team, and you might get the opposite results.
Money doesn't make you immune to mental health problems.
Right. Yeah. Period. End of sentence.
Yes.
Yeah. Well said. We also had Tim Leonard on our show today. So Tim is out in Denver. Normally he's here serving as our producer during the show, and then he hosts his own show from 5 to 6 o'clock. But he's out in Denver for the SU men's lacrosse team. They played last night, of course, hung on to beat Denver 13-12. He's on his way back to Syracuse. We caught up with him, though, prior to his departure, and he filled us in on both SU men's lacrosse, SU women's basketball. And we started with that lacrosse game last night as Syracuse wrapped up its 6-game road trip 4-2.
There were 20 minutes where Syracuse looked like a national championship contender in the third quarter. The entirety of the third quarter, they played maybe their best lacrosse of the season, especially on offense. I really thought they looked very good offensively in the third quarter. Denver threw out kind of a funky zone defense at them after Air Force played zone against Syracuse on Thursday, and it was sort of expected that Denver would pack it in and really dare the Orange to shoot from the outside. That was their game plan, actually, 2 years ago when they had the same coaching staff, and they knocked Syracuse out of the quarterfinal round of the NCAA tournament. And Syracuse has a lot of the same players from that team 2 years ago as their core guys on offense. They're just now seniors and not sophomores. And Denver is a young team that is a very good defensive team. So for Syracuse to prove they can make some shots from the outside, specifically, Luke Roa had a really nice game. He scored 4 goals, 2 with his left hand, 2 with his right hand, and was really dangerous from the outside. And after the Orange got ahead big in the third quarter, they're up by 5 going in the fourth quarter. there was a controversial call against Drew Angelo, the backup faceoff guy, for an unsportsmanlike conduct. And I'll say this, I don't think the Orange coaching staff is going to be sending thank you notes to the referees for the game last night. Not saying that it really changed that game that much, but there was just some weird calls, and that one allowed a 1-minute unreleasable penalty for Denver to score 3 goals in a row and really get right back in the game. Then it felt like Syracuse was going to put the game away. They kind of made some miscues when they had an unreleasable penalty and had a man-up opportunity, and they ended up just having to get a big defensive stand at the end when Denver was out of timeouts, and they brought it across the midfield line with about 30 seconds left. So all in all, kind of a topsy-turvy game, kind of a cardiac Cuse type of game, but they came out here to get 2 wins. They got that done. They've won 4 in a row, and certainly they're in a very good spot right now at this point in the season.
There's a clip circulating on social media, Tim, of the final sequence where Denver's got a couple cracks at it. They missed, final horn sounds, and then there was a lot of pushing and shoving, and then the clip kind of cuts off, which is what I saw as well. Was there more to it? Can you let us take us into what happened there in that final sequence as the horn sounded? Was there anything more to it, or was it just pushing and shoving?
No, it was just basically pushing and shoving. I mean, it was more than you typically see, for sure. It was like a mosh pit to the left of the goal where everyone from Syracuse and pretty much everyone from Denver was in on this big huddle. And there was a lot of jawing and a lot of pushing and shoving. And I'm sure a lot of bad words being said to the opposition from either side. And I don't think there was anything more than that. I mean, I certainly didn't see a punch or anything like that that would warrant, further suspension or investigation into maybe a player being out of a future game. I think it was just a little bit of bad blood at the end of the game, and a hard-fought game that led to some pushing and shoving at the end, and it maybe lasted 30 seconds, and then they kind of just broke everyone apart, and the handshake line was fine after that.
All right, now you look at this road trip and the way that it started, of course, back-to-back losses to Harvard and Princeton, and then they're on the ropes against Penn, somehow come back, win that game in overtime, and they have not lost since. To go 4-2 on this road trip, this 6-game stretch away from the Dome, prior to it, I don't know if fans would have necessarily looked at 4-2 as a success, but it feels like, and maybe it's, recency bias because they've won 4 in a row, but 4-2 on that trip feels like it is a massive success as now they return home and they got Georgetown and then they get ready for ACC play. What do you think about that? Was it a big success?
I think it's a success for sure. I also think that the lessons they take away from going on the road here, the team bonding, and I mean, not many teams do this. Not any team does this, really. And a lot of teams would have struggled going on the road, playing this level of competition, game in and game out. Really, the one break they got in this entire season to this point is the Air Force game. I know they completely walloped St. Joe's, but it's interesting. The RPI, I believe, came out this morning. I just went and looked at it. I was kind of thinking it's about around that time where RPI will be released. And Syracuse is number 2 in the RPI. I think this is the initial rankings. And I just pulled it up before I went on with you guys. I mean, that's obviously a great ranking. Their one loss in the top 10 is to number 1 Princeton on the road. That was one of the first games of this road trip. I mentioned they beat St. Joe's 20-2. St. Joe's is 10th in RPI. Johns Hopkins is 7th. BU is actually 5th. So these are the initial rankings, and it honestly feels a little upside down to me. I mean, they got Penn at 29th. And certainly I feel like Penn is a much better team than BU, Hopkins, or St. Joe's. But as it stands right now, Gary Gate plays the game well of the RPI in terms of how he schedules, and he really looks into the math behind it and understands that that is a big part of what the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee will be looking at. And Syracuse is 7-2 and 2nd in RPI. And they're going to have a lot more RPI quality opportunities coming up. Notre Dame's 3rd. They play them on the road. Duke is 4th in RPI. They'll play them at home soon. Georgetown, 14th in RPI is the matchup on Sunday. So if you care about RPI, which you should, because that's what the NCAA Tournament Selection Committee cares about, and maybe the rankings will kind of fluctuate just because this is the initial rankings, but Syracuse is in a very good spot at 2nd in those rankings, only behind Princeton, who they lost to on the road.
I said on the news last night that there are some intangibles with this road trip, right? That, you talked about, facing some adversity. We had you on a couple weeks ago, and you talked about the benefit of that come tournament time. And they certainly faced adversity on this trip, right? With the back-to-back losses and then, being in that hole against Penn. And also, you mentioned last week talking about coming together on this road trip, on going out to Denver during spring break and being able to, kind of bring the guys closer together. Do you sense that at all in talking to the players? Do you feel like this road trip and losing a couple games and being together for a week straight like this on the road, has it kind of galvanized this group and brought them closer together?
I think for sure. And I'll say this, every time I go on a road trip like this with a team, I think it's easy to maybe think as just an average fan that, Gary Gait and Syracuse are going out to Denver. They're just going to have a grand old time on spring break. Or a couple years ago, they went to the Outer Banks and, the guys are just going to cut loose and they're not really going to care about the games. Or maybe that's what someone would think. These guys are locked in out here and they are nonstop talking about lacrosse. And whenever I talk to the players, they really value that they're with their best friends for 24 hours straight every day. And every waking second, it feels like, whether they're at breakfast, lunch, they're talking about matchups. The coaching staff's poring over film. So a lot goes into it. Even though they're having some fun out here, they're seeing the sights a little bit. I think Gary Gait really balances that really well. And he always harkens back to his time when he was coached by Roy Simmons Jr., and he would take them on trips like this. And he felt like there was a lot of value in going on long road trips or getting to see different parts of America, getting to see things outside of the lacrosse field, getting to be around your teammates off the field and grow that bond, which helps you on the field. So I certainly think there will be some positives from just going on a road trip like this. And you hit on it, Steve. They face some adversity. It seems like every year that Gary Gait has been the head coach, they've faced some adversity, and they've done a good job at fighting through that adversity. Certainly John Mullen faced some adversity, and he was struggling at the face-off X, and now he feels like more of the All-American that we're used to. So I do think Syracuse is in a very good spot, and maybe it's not ideal to play 6 straight games on the road, but the idea that they went out here for a week, I think, is going to help them a lot, and this is a very close-knit team. You can definitely sense that being around the guys.
And I think that's a great way to transition into the women's basketball team, because it seems like this is a very close-knit team, and maybe more so than last year. We've heard a few of the players of late talk about the chemistry of this group, and that last year didn't go the way anybody wanted it to, but Felicia Leggett-Jack is having a great bounce-back year with a roster that, again, they've got returning players, but they also have new players who have come in. Everybody's kind of meshed well together. What do you make of the bracket, the draw? They get Iowa State, who's a very good team in the first round. And should they win that, they've got to play UConn. I mean, you nailed it. We talked about this last week, right? You said it's probably going to be the 8-9 game. They're probably going to go to Storrs, and sure enough, that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of surprised me is I did not think Iowa State was going to be an 8 seed. So I think we're fixated on the Storrs part of the draw because that's really frustrating. This is going to be 4 of the last 5 times that Syracuse is in the NCAA tournament, not hosting, that they will get sent to Storrs. One time they got sent to Starkville when Mississippi State was a 1 seed and they lost in the 8-9 game. This is going to be the second time, actually, they'll get sent to Storrs. In 2017, they played Iowa State in the 8-9 game for the right to play UConn. So I guess I was just totally expecting them to get sent to Storrs the way that Clemson got sent to South Carolina, and you could pretty much book that one as well, just given how they do it in the geography. And that's frustrating, so not to completely ignore that, but setting that aside, I think we're fixated on the Storrs part, and really the toughest part about the draw is the fact that Iowa State, a team that is going to be playing in their 6th straight NCAA tournament, has one of the best coaches in the sport, has one of the best players in the sport, was ranked in the top 20 for a good chunk of this season. They lost one of their best players, Addie Brown, to injury for 11 games. They really struggled in Big 12 play and got knocked out early in the Big 12 tournament. So they're at a point right now where they have not been considered an 8 seed all year. They've been more considered like a 4 or 5 seed. Then they fell to maybe 6, 7 seed. Then they lost in the first round to Arizona State, and here they are as an 8 seed. And Syracuse draws this really talented team in the first round. So it's going to be a tough game, and you factor in that Dominique Darius is out for the game. That obviously won't make things easier. But I'm confident that Coach Jack and her entire coaching staff will have a good game plan because they always do. And frankly, they had a good game plan when they played Iowa State 2 years ago, and they upset them in a Thanksgiving holiday tournament in the non-conference portion of the schedule.
How about this matchup of arguably, I don't think it's even up for debate, two of the best post players in the country. I think we could say that with certainty with Audie Crooks and Uche Azoje. What do you make of this particular matchup, and do you think that's ultimately what decides this game?
It's definitely going to have a big hand in deciding it, and it's very fascinating because they are definitely two of the best players in the country, two of the best post players in the country. They also could not be more different at how they play basketball and what their strengths are. And really, Iowa State's entire team kind of embodies Audie Crooks as a player. Audie Crooks is a unbelievable offensive player. And when you get the ball to her in the low post, it's almost a guaranteed bucket. She turns over her shoulder, and she scores consistently around the block and consistently from the mid-range down, basically. But she's not a good defensive player, and she struggles in ball screen coverage. And think about almost how Eddie Lampkin had to play in ball screen coverage for Syracuse last year on the men's basketball side of things. She plays what they call drop coverage, where she basically is 5-6 feet off the ball screen when it's happening. So that has allowed a lot of teams to score in the mid-range area against Iowa State. And that's why right now, offensively, they are 9th in the country on Bart Torvik's offensive efficiency, but they're 86th in defensive efficiency. And their raw numbers, they rank like 250th in the country in scoring defense. So Uche Azoje is a great defensive player. She runs the floor. She gets a lot of points in the mid-range area on some high-post jump shots. She's very different from Audie Crooks. So it's really going to be a fascinating matchup. I think Syracuse is going to try and expose kind of the rim running ability of Uche Azoje, try and get up and down the floor, use their numbers, as Coach Jack often says. And hopefully they can score a lot in the mid-range. I'm thinking about Layla Filia, who is one of the better mid-range scorers in the country, and that mid-range pull-up around ball screens with Audie Crooks in the action should definitely be available for Syracuse in this game.
And this is an awfully difficult opening round game for the SU women's basketball team. Iowa State opened as a 7.5-point favorite, I think for a reason. Very talented. They've got one of the best players in the country in Audie Crooks. Again, as Tim mentioned, one of the best coaches in the game as well. And Bill Fennelly, over 800 career wins. This is quite the tall task that they've got Saturday, and then if they win, they move on and they get the right to play UConn on Monday out there in stores.
Yep, Steve. All right, today's the perfect day for Would You Eat It?
Okay, St. Patrick's Day.
Corned beef and cabbage.
I've had it before.
Cabbage is surprisingly delicious.
It's not my favorite thing, but it is a tradition. And so, being in a family that, my wife is Irish and, my mom was Irish. Yes. So I've definitely had it before. It's not my favorite thing.
Okay.
But I've eaten it.
Will you eat it tonight?
Probably not. I'm actually, today's a busy day because we've got our Orange Nation TV show coming up later. Shameless plug here. No, I will probably not eat it today because dinner's gonna be on the go. I'm probably gonna be at Wegmans for dinner.
Well, that's what I'm probably gonna do too, and buy one of the boil and bag ones and eat that. So there you go.
You said earlier that you don't celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
I know, but I kind of like corned beef and cabbage.
Now you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
Stink up my whole apartment building with it.
All right. We got to go, everybody. We appreciate you watching. Thanks for listening. For Paulie, I'm Steve. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, everybody.
Download the WSYR Plus app on your TV to stream News Channel 9 for free. Just go to your smart TV, search WSYR Plus in the App Store, and download to start streaming today.